A black woman doesn't belong behind the wheel of a Rolls-Royce like this. Officer Dominic Vance sneered as he swung his steel baton into the driver's side window. The glass exploded across the luxury cabin, and shocked pedestrians gasped as phones immediately began recording. Vance reached through the shattered opening, unlocked the door, and yanked Special Agent Nia Harlan onto the sidewalk. "I guarantee this car isn't yours," he laughed. "Women like you don't buy cars like this. They borrow them, steal them, or lie about them." Nia, a composed black woman in a tailored navy suit, slowly raised her empty hands. "I haven't broken any law, officer." Vance shoved her against the Rolls-Royce before twisting her arms behind her back. "Don't play innocent," he mocked. "I've been wearing this badge long enough to know that every fancy story starts the same way." As he snapped the handcuffs shut, he leaned close enough for everyone to hear. "You should have stayed where people expected you to be instead of pretending you belong with real success." A nearby officer searched the vehicle and pulled a black leather credential holder from the center console. "Dominic, you might want to see this." Vance barely glanced at the gleaming federal badge inside before stuffing it into his vest. "Fake badge?" he scoffed. "She's desperate enough to carry fake credentials, too." No one in that crowd realized the woman they had just humiliated had spent many quiet months hunting corruption inside the very precinct now celebrating her arrest. Before we reveal how one shattered window destroyed an entire police career, tell us where you're watching from and what your local time is. If you believe no one should ever be judged by their appearance, subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because the truth is only beginning to unfold. Only seconds after Officer Dominic Vance shoved Nia Harlan against the gleaming Rolls-Royce, the once busy downtown intersection became unnaturally quiet. Passing drivers slowed almost to a stop. Store employees stepped onto the sidewalk. Dozens of smartphones pointed toward the unfolding scene. Nia never struggled. Her wrists remained relaxed despite the cold steel handcuffs tightening around them. "I'd like to know why I'm being detained," she asked calmly. Vance smirked as if the question itself amused him. "You'll know after we figure out whose luxury car you stole." A few people in the crowd exchanged uneasy glances. One elderly woman spoke up. "Officer, she hasn't done anything. We all saw you break that window." Vance shot her a glare. "Ma'am, unless you're volunteering to be arrested for interfering, I'd suggest you keep walking." The woman lowered her eyes but didn't leave. Instead, she quietly continued recording. Vance turned back toward Nia. "License." "My purse is still inside the vehicle." "I didn't ask where it was. You pulled me out before I could." "Excuses already." He motioned toward another officer. "Search everything." Officer Caleb Thorne eagerly climbed into the Rolls-Royce through the shattered driver's door. The luxurious interior immediately caught his attention. "This thing smells brand new," he muttered. Vance laughed. "Probably belongs to some athlete she's dating." Several officers chuckled. Another added, "Or maybe she found the keys while cleaning somebody's mansion." The laughter spread. Nia closed her eyes for only a brief moment, not because their insults hurt, but because every word was being captured. High above the dashboard, hidden inside what appeared to be part of the factory trim, an encrypted microcamera continued recording silently. Every voice, every insult, every unnecessary use of force every second. Vance had no idea. He leaned closer to Nia. "You know what your biggest mistake was today?" She looked directly into his eyes. "No. Tell me. You actually believe people would see a black woman driving a Rolls-Royce and assume it was yours?" The crowd fell silent. Even some bystanders who had remained neutral now looked visibly uncomfortable. A young college student whispered to his friend, "Did he seriously just say that?" His friend nodded while keeping his phone pointed toward Vance. "This is insane." Vance noticed the cameras. Instead of calming down, he became louder. "I've been a cop for years," he declared proudly. "My instincts don't miss." He slapped the roof of the Rolls-Royce. "This car doesn't fit her story." Nia answered quietly. "Evidence should matter more than instinct." Vance laughed so hard that even Caleb looked embarrassed. "Listen to that. She's giving me a lecture on evidence." He suddenly reached into Nia's jacket pocket without permission. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Looking for the truth." He pulled out a slim leather wallet. Inside were ordinary credit cards, business cards, a driver's license. Vance barely glanced at the license before tossing the wallet onto the hood of the Rolls-Royce. "Caleb, run her name." Caleb radioed dispatch. Seconds later, the dispatcher replied, "License valid." Vance frowned. "No warrants?" "Negative." "Vehicle registered?" There was a pause. "Registration appears..." Static interrupted the transmission. "Registered under Harlan Strategic Consulting." Vance rolled his eyes. "Fake shell company." Dispatch continued. "Everything currently returns as valid." Vance wasn't satisfied. He wanted something illegal, something that justified what he'd already done, because admitting he was wrong was no longer an option. He pointed toward the broken window. She's probably hiding drugs somewhere. Caleb resumed searching with renewed enthusiasm. He emptied the glove compartment. He searched beneath the seats. He opened every storage compartment. Nothing. Not a single illegal item. Meanwhile, more people gathered. Someone quietly said, "She hasn't even raised her voice." Another replied, "They're treating her like a criminal for no reason." Vance overheard them. "You people only see 30 seconds of a police stop." He barked. "You don't know what officers deal with." A middle-aged veteran stepped forward. "I know enough to recognize probable cause." Vance immediately pointed at him. "Back up. I served this country for decades." "I don't care if you served on the moon." The veteran slowly lifted both hands. "I'm just telling you that this doesn't look right." Vance ignored him. His pride had already replaced his judgment. Inside the Rolls-Royce, Caleb finally noticed the black leather credential holder tucked neatly inside the center console. "Dominic." "What?" "I found something." Vance walked over impatiently. "What is it?" Caleb opened the holder halfway. A polished metallic badge reflected the afternoon sunlight. Neither man recognized the seal immediately. Vance snatched it away before Caleb could examine it further. Probably another fake prop. He slipped it casually into his vest pocket. Nia watched the entire exchange without saying a word. For the first time since the stop began, a faint change crossed her face. Not fear, concern, not for herself, for the operation. Months of patient work depended on information connected to that credential. If they searched any deeper, if they opened the concealed compartment beneath the rear seat, the investigation could collapse before federal agents were ready to move. Vance mistook her silence for defeat. "There it is. I knew you'd crack eventually." She met his gaze calmly. "No, officer. You've mistaken patience for surrender." His smile disappeared. Those words unsettled him more than shouting ever could. At that very moment, less than 3 blocks away, a black SUV quietly turned onto Jefferson Avenue. Inside, a man in a dark suit answered an encrypted phone. "We've confirmed visual contact." He looked through the windshield toward the flashing patrol lights in the distance. "What about Agent Harlan?" A voice answered through the earpiece. "She's maintaining cover." The man paused. Then he spoke 4 words that would soon change everything. "Mobilize the response team." Officer Dominic Vance watched the black SUV disappear around the corner without giving it a second thought. His attention remained fixed on Nia Harlan, who stood quietly beside her shattered Rolls-Royce with her hands cuffed behind her back. Her composure irritated him more than any protest ever could. Most people argued. Most people cried. Some begged. Nia did none of those things. She simply observed. Vance stepped closer until they were only inches apart. "You've been awfully calm for someone who's about to lose everything." Nia met his eyes. "I've learned that people usually reveal themselves long before the truth does." Vance chuckled. "Then you're about to learn something about police work." He turned toward Officer Caleb Thorne. "Load her into the cruiser." Without warning, Caleb grabbed Nia by the elbow. She stumbled slightly as he pushed her toward the patrol car. The crowd erupted. "Hey, she isn't resisting." "You don't have to shove her." Vance spun around. "If anyone else wants to interfere, I'll start writing obstruction charges." The shouting stopped, but the phones kept recording. That bothered him. He walked directly toward a young man wearing a university sweatshirt. "You." The student lowered his phone. "Delete the video." "I know my rights." Vance extended his hand. "I said delete it." "No." For a long second, neither man moved. Then another voice broke the silence. "He doesn't have to." It came from a gray-haired attorney who had been standing outside a nearby coffee shop. "The First Amendment protects him." Vance glared at the older man. "And who are you?" "Someone who spent decades practicing constitutional law." The tension thickened. Dozens of eyes shifted between them. Vance knew he couldn't seize every phone. Instead, he smiled coldly. "Fine." He leaned close enough for only the attorney to hear. "You'll regret sticking your nose into this." The attorney didn't answer. He simply continued recording. Inside the patrol vehicle, Nia sat quietly in the back seat. Vance opened the rear door just enough to speak. "You know what happens next?" She remained silent. "We book you, we impound the car, we tear it apart piece by piece." He expected panic. Instead, Nia calmly replied, "If that's the decision you make, I hope you are prepared to explain every step afterward." Vance laughed. "I don't explain myself to suspects." "You might." Those 2 words lingered in the air. Vance slammed the cruiser door shut. Later, the convoy entered the 6th precinct. Several officers looked up from their desk as Vance marched Nia through the lobby. One officer smirked. "What's the charge?" Vance answered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Possession of a suspicious vehicle." Laughter spread across the room. Another detective looked toward the parking lot. "The Rolls-Royce?" Vance nodded proudly. "Thought she could fool us." Someone whistled. "That's one expensive mistake." Nia remained silent as every pair of eyes followed her. Vance interpreted her silence as defeat. He couldn't have been more wrong. A detention officer removed the handcuffs and secured one wrist to an interview table. Vance tossed a stack of paperwork onto the metal surface. Sign. Nia glanced down. The incident report had already been completed. She read the opening paragraph. Subject became aggressive. She looked back up. That isn't true. Vance shrugged. It's true now. You wrote a false report. I wrote the report that keeps my officers safe. You mean the report that protects you? His smile faded. For the first time, someone inside the room noticed how confidently she spoke. Vance leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You'll sign, you'll admit you resisted, you'll pay for the broken window, and maybe the prosecutor goes easy on you. Nia slowly pushed the paperwork back across the table. I won't sign something that never happened. Vance's patience snapped. His palm struck the steel table with a deafening bang. You don't get to negotiate. Several officers outside the interview room looked toward the noise. Vance lowered his voice. You think you're smarter than us? No. I think the truth is. Those words irritated him even more. He stormed out of the room. Across the precinct, Lieutenant Roland Voss walked into Captain Victor Harlan's office. You heard? Harlan didn't look up from his paperwork. The Rolls-Royce stop. Voss nodded. Vance is convinced he's got something big. Harlan sighed. Vance's instincts usually create paperwork. Voss hesitated. There's one problem. What? Everything dispatch checked came back clean. Harlan finally looked up. Even the registration? Perfectly clean. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Harlan leaned back. Tell Vance to find something. If that car is clean. He stopped, then quietly added, make sure it doesn't stay that way. Voss understood exactly what that meant. He nodded once before leaving the office. Meanwhile, in the evidence garage behind the precinct, the damaged Rolls-Royce was being processed. Officer Caleb Thorne unlocked the driver's door again. The cabin lights illuminated the luxurious interior. He whistled softly. This thing cost more than my house. Another officer laughed. Maybe we'll find diamonds. As Caleb searched beneath the front seats again, his fingers brushed against something unusual, a tiny black device smaller than a thumb drive. What is this? He picked it up. No markings, no buttons, just a blinking green light. He frowned. Probably some kind of GPS. Without thinking, he placed it inside an evidence bag. He never realized he had just disconnected one of the FBI's encrypted live transmission backup modules. At that exact moment, inside the black SUV parked 3 blocks away, a laptop screen flashed red. Live signal lost. The man in the passenger seat immediately picked up his encrypted radio. We've lost telemetry from Agent Harlan's vehicle. A brief silence followed. Then a calm voice answered. Proceed to phase 2. The man looked toward the 6th precinct building in the distance. They've crossed the line. No, the voice replied. They just buried themselves. The heavy steel door of interview room 3 clicked shut, leaving Nia Harlan alone beneath the cold fluorescent lights. The room smelled faintly of stale coffee and disinfectant, but neither the silence nor the confinement unsettled her. She had trained for moments far worse than this. What troubled her wasn't the handcuffs secured to the metal ring beneath the table. It was the operation. For many months, she had quietly built a federal corruption case against officers inside the 6th precinct. Hundreds of hours of surveillance, secret financial records, hidden recordings, confidential witnesses who had finally trusted someone enough to speak. One reckless traffic stop threatened to destroy all of it. Outside the room, Officer Dominic Vance paced with restless confidence. She's bluffing, he muttered. Lieutenant Roland Voss folded his arms. You sound awfully certain. I've arrested people like her my whole career. Voss glanced toward the interview room through the narrow window. People like her? Vance shrugged. Calm, educated, think they're smarter than cops. He lowered his voice. They always crack. Voss wasn't as convinced. There isn't a single valid charge yet. Vance's jaw tightened. There will be. Captain Victor Harlan entered the hallway carrying Nia's thin case file. Anything? Vance shook his head. No drugs, no warrants. No stolen vehicle. No fake registration. Harlan closed the folder slowly. So right now, we've got a broken Rolls-Royce. He looked directly at Vance. That you broke. Vance immediately defended himself. I feared there was a weapon. Harlan raised an eyebrow. What weapon? Vance hesitated. I believe she was reaching. Voss frowned. I reviewed the body camera. Vance looked at him. I never actually saw her reach. The hallway fell silent. Harlan pinched the bridge of his nose. You'd better hope your report sounds better than that. Vance forced a laugh. It will. Inside the evidence garage, Officer Caleb Thorne continued cataloging the contents of the Rolls-Royce. Luxury luggage, business folders, a laptop secured with federal-grade encryption, a small overnight bag. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious. Everything seemed almost ordinary. Caleb sighed. I don't get it. Another evidence technician looked over. What? If she's hiding something, she's the most organized criminal I've ever seen. The technician laughed. Maybe Vance finally picked the wrong person. Before Caleb could answer, his eyes settled on a narrow compartment hidden beneath the rear armrest. I don't remember opening that. He carefully pressed the release latch. The panel opened only a few inches before stopping. Something inside prevented it from moving farther. He reached toward it. Just before his fingers touched the compartment, his radio crackled. Caleb. He grabbed the radio. Go ahead. Captain wants you upstairs now. Caleb glanced back at the half-open compartment. It can wait. He closed it again. Neither officer realized they had come within inches of discovering the secure storage unit containing encrypted federal investigation files. Across town, inside an unmarked federal operations vehicle, 6 monitors filled an entire wall. 3 screens had already gone dark after the transmission module inside Nia's vehicle was disconnected. The remaining feeds continued streaming through backup systems. A man wearing an FBI tactical jacket studied the displays. They're improvising. Another agent looked over. Does Agent Harlan know we've lost one channel? She'll assume it. What about extraction? The man shook his head. Negative, director's orders. No intervention unless her life is in immediate danger. A younger agent frowned. They've already assaulted a federal officer. They don't know she's federal. They don't need to. The supervisor looked at the precinct's live satellite image. Every minute they keep violating procedure, our case becomes stronger. Back inside interview room 3, the door opened. Vance entered, carrying a paper cup of coffee. He placed it on the table. You hungry? Nia looked at him. No. Thirsty? No. Vance pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down. You know what I don't understand? She remained silent. You've acted like this whole thing doesn't scare you. He leaned forward. Most innocent people panic. Nia answered softly. Not all guilty people panic either. Vance smirked. So you're saying nothing? I'm saying fear isn't evidence. That sentence irritated him more than any accusation could have. He slid a blank legal pad across the table. Write down who owns the Rolls-Royce. I already told you. I want it in writing. She calmly picked up the pen. Instead of writing immediately, she asked, will this statement be preserved as evidence? Vance blinked. Why? Because every written record matters. He shrugged. Sure. She wrote only one sentence. The registered owner can be verified through lawful federal channels. Vance read it twice. What kind of answer is this? The truthful one. You think you're clever. I think precision matters. Vance crumpled the page and threw it into the trash. You've got one last chance. Tell me who you really work for. Nia met his eyes without hesitation. You'll know soon enough. Outside the interview room, Lieutenant Voss watched through the narrow glass. Something about Nia bothered him, not because she looked dangerous, but because she looked prepared. She never contradicted herself, never became emotional, never tried to negotiate, almost as though she had expected something like this. Voss quietly walked away and entered the dispatch office. I need every prior stop Dominic Vance has made. The dispatcher looked surprised. All of them? Every single one. As the records began appearing on the screen, Voss's expression slowly changed. Use of force complaints, civil rights allegations, dismissed cases, missing body camera footage, repeated accusations from black motorists, far more than he had ever realized. Voss whispered to himself, what have we been ignoring? Before he could read another file, every computer monitor inside dispatch suddenly froze for 2 seconds. Then the screens returned. No one noticed the brief interruption. No one except the civilian IT contractor seated quietly in the corner. He stared at the flickering monitor, then discreetly sent a single encrypted message from his phone. Internal network confirmed. Warrant package ready. Await final authorization. Hundreds of miles away, the message reached a secure FBI server. Special Agent Julian Crow read it once before looking at the federal arrest warrant spread across the conference table. He closed the folder. Tell every team to stand by. He glanced at the clock. The moment they're signed, the 6th precinct belongs to us. By early evening, what officer Dominic Vance believed would be another routine arrest had become the most talked about incident in the city. The first video appeared on social media shortly after Nia Harlan had been pulled from her Rolls-Royce. Then came another and another. Different angles, different witnesses, each one showing the same unmistakable moment. Vance swinging his baton through the driver's side window before Nia had made a single threatening movement. Within a short time, local news stations began requesting statements from the 6th precinct. Captain Victor Harlan watched the growing headlines flash across the television mounted in the conference room. Officer accused of excessive force during traffic stop. Bystanders questioned police actions. He muted the television. No one talks to the press, he ordered. Every officer around the table nodded. Vance leaned back confidently. They'll move on. No one answered. For the first time that day, even his fellow officers weren't certain. Across the hall, Lieutenant Roland Voss quietly reviewed the body camera footage again. He replayed the first moments. Nia's hands remained on the steering wheel. She complied with every command. No sudden movement, no reaching, no threat. Then came the unmistakable crack of Vance's baton smashing the window. Voss paused the video. His stomach tightened. Vance had claimed he feared for his life. The footage showed something entirely different. He opened another recording. This one came from Officer Caleb Thorne's body camera. Again, no weapon, no resistance, only Vance escalating the situation. Voss leaned back heavily. How did this get so out of control? Meanwhile, in interview room 3, Nia remained seated exactly where Vance had left her. An officer unlocked the door and placed a bottle of water on the table. She smiled politely. "Thank you." The young officer hesitated. "My name is Lila Grant." Nia looked up. Lila couldn't have been long on the force. She appeared nervous. I watched some of the videos." Nia remained silent. Lila lowered her voice. "I don't think what happened to you was right." For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Nia asked gently, "Why are you telling me this?" Lila glanced toward the hallway. "Because not everyone here agrees with Vance. You should be careful." Lila gave a faint smile. "So should you." She quietly walked away before anyone noticed how long she had stayed. Nia watched the door close. Sometimes courage arrived wearing the newest badge. At the same time, outside the precinct, reporters gathered behind temporary police barricades. Television cameras lined the sidewalk. Microphones waited. One reporter addressed the live audience. Witnesses claim Officer Dominic Vance broke the vehicle's window before giving the driver an opportunity to comply. Police officials have not yet responded to those allegations. Behind the cameras, the gray-haired attorney who had witnessed the arrest approached another reporter. "I have the entire encounter recorded." The reporter turned immediately. "Every second from the moment the officer approached the car? Would you be willing to share it?" The attorney nodded. "If it helps the truth." Inside Captain Harlan's office, anxiety slowly replaced confidence. The captain stared at his ringing phone. City Hall again. He ignored it. Seconds later, another call arrived. Internal Affairs. He ignored that one too. Finally, his personal phone vibrated. The caller ID displayed only one word. Harlan reluctantly answered. Before he could speak, an angry voice interrupted him. "What happened out there today?" "We're handling it." "That's not what the public thinks." Harlan glanced toward the closed blinds. "We're still gathering facts." "The facts are already online." The call ended abruptly. Harlan slowly lowered the phone. For the first time in years, he felt political protection beginning to disappear. Downstairs, Vance remained completely unaware. He laughed with two officers near the booking desk. "I've seen this before. Internet outrage lasts a short time." One officer forced a smile. "You sure?" Vance shrugged. "People always side with cops in the end." Before anyone could respond, Officer Caleb Thorne entered carrying an evidence inventory. "Dominic." "What?" "We searched the Rolls-Royce twice, and nothing." Vance frowned. "You missed something." "I don't think we did." Vance snatched the inventory sheet. Luxury clothing, business contracts, encrypted laptop, personnel documents, no narcotics, no illegal weapons, no cash bundles, nothing. Vance crumpled the paper. "Search it again." Caleb looked surprised. "We already have." "I didn't ask how many times." Caleb reluctantly nodded. "Yes, sir." As he walked away, another officer quietly whispered, "What if she's actually innocent?" Vance heard him. "Innocent people don't stay that calm." The younger officer replied before thinking, "Or maybe professionals do." Vance's smile disappeared. Several miles away, inside a secure federal command center, Special Agent Julian Crow stood before an enormous digital evidence board. Photographs of officers from the 6th Precinct covered the wall. Red lines connected financial transactions, secret meetings, anonymous complaints, unexplained bank deposits. A federal prosecutor entered carrying a sealed envelope. The final judicial authorization just arrived. Julian accepted it. Inside lay the signed federal warrants they had spent many months building. Search warrants, arrest warrants, electronic seizure authorizations. Everything was now legal. Everything was ready. He looked toward the operations team. "No one moves yet." An agent frowned. "Sir, Harlan has been in custody for hours." Julian answered calmly. Agent Harlan knew the risk before she volunteered. Another agent spoke. "What if they discover the hidden compartment first?" Julian looked toward the live satellite image of the 6th Precinct. "They won't." "How can you be sure?" Julian allowed himself the faintest smile. "Because the compartment they're looking for isn't where they think it is." The room became silent. Nia had anticipated the possibility of an unlawful search months before. The truly sensitive evidence had never remained inside the Rolls-Royce. It had already been transferred through encrypted dead drops, secure cloud storage, and federal evidence lockers across 3 different states. The car had become something else entirely, a test, not just of corrupt officers, but of how far they would go once they believed no one was watching. Julian checked his watch. One more mistake. He closed the warrant folder. That's all we need. Back inside the 6th precinct, Officer Dominic Vance smiled as he picked up the keys to Nia's Rolls-Royce once again. I'll search it myself this time. No one realized that his next decision would provide the FBI with exactly the evidence needed to bring down not only him, but nearly everyone protecting him. Officer Dominic Vance slammed the driver's door of the damaged Rolls-Royce behind him and looked around the evidence garage. Only Officer Caleb Thorne and an evidence technician remained nearby. Vance tossed the keys onto the hood. Everybody missed something. Caleb sighed. We've already searched it 3 times. Then search it a 4th. Vance climbed into the driver's seat, brushing shards of broken glass from the leather upholstery. No criminal buys a car like this without leaving something behind. He began pressing every button on the dashboard. Navigation controls, hidden storage, nothing. His frustration grew with each passing second. She's hiding something, he muttered. I can feel it. Caleb exchanged an uneasy glance with the technician. Vance had stopped looking for evidence. He was looking for validation. Back inside interview room 3, Nia Harlan finally heard footsteps approaching. The door opened. Instead of Vance, Officer Lila Grant quietly stepped inside, carrying a fresh cup of coffee. I figured the water was getting warm. Nia offered a grateful smile. Thank you. Lila hesitated before sitting across from her. They're searching your car again. I expected that. Lila studied her face. You don't seem worried. Nia answered carefully. Worry changes very little. Lila leaned forward. I've only been here a short time. I joined because I believed this badge meant protecting people. Her voice grew quieter. But today, she stopped. Nia gently finished the sentence. Today made you question that. Lila nodded. My father was a police officer. He always told me the fastest way to lose public trust was to stop telling yourself the truth. Nia remained silent for several seconds. Then she spoke softly. One honest officer can change an entire department. Lila looked surprised. You still believe that? I have to. Before Lila could answer, her radio crackled. Officer Grant? She quickly stood. Captain Harlan wants every available officer in the briefing room. As she reached the door, she glanced back. I hope whoever you really are... She paused. I hope someone comes for you. After she left, Nia quietly whispered to herself. They already have. Upstairs, Captain Victor Harlan stood before nearly every officer assigned to the 6th precinct. The atmosphere had changed. No one was joking anymore. Harlan placed several printed screenshots on the conference table. Each one showed Vance smashing the Rolls-Royce window from a different angle. The videos are everywhere. Vance crossed his arms. They don't show the whole stop. Harlan looked directly at him. They show enough. Lieutenant Roland Voss spoke next. Internal Affairs wants copies of every body camera recording. Vance immediately answered. They'll get them. Voss didn't move. They want the original files. For the first time, Vance's confidence wavered. Only slightly. Harlan noticed. You didn't turn your camera off. Vance hesitated. Did you? Vance looked toward the floor. It lost connection for a few minutes. Voss frowned. When? Right after I broke the window. The room became completely silent. Harlan closed his eyes. You've got to be kidding me. Vance quickly defended himself. It happens all the time. No, Voss replied. It doesn't. Meanwhile, in the evidence garage, Caleb resumed searching the Rolls-Royce. This time, he focused on the trunk. Designer luggage, emergency equipment, a neatly folded blanket. Everything appeared ordinary. Then he noticed a slim black folder tucked beneath the spare tire cover. Dominic. Vance hurried over. What did you find? Caleb opened the folder. Inside were dozens of printed financial reports, corporate filings, property records, donation receipts. Vance flipped through several pages. What is all this? The evidence technician looked over his shoulder. Looks like accounting paperwork. Vance tossed the folder aside. Useless. None of them noticed the tiny line printed in the bottom corner of every page. Federal reference copy. The reports themselves contained nothing confidential. They were deliberately placed there. Nia had known corrupt officers would search for something dramatic. Instead, she left them something painfully ordinary. Enough to distract, enough to waste their time. The real evidence had never been inside the vehicle. 30 miles away, inside a secure federal operations center, Special Agent Julian Crow received another encrypted update. Status? An analyst looked up from her monitor. Agent Harlan remains in custody. What about the precinct? They've searched the vehicle 4 separate times. Julian nodded. Exactly as expected. Another analyst smiled. They still haven't found anything. They were never supposed to. Julian enlarged a digital map of the city. Colored markers appeared across the screen. Storage facilities, federal buildings, safe deposit vaults, encrypted cloud servers. The investigation doesn't depend on one car. He looked around the room. It never did. One agent raised an eyebrow. So why let them keep searching? Julian answered without hesitation. Because every illegal search becomes another federal violation. Another notification appeared on the main monitor. Network activity detected. Unauthorized access to vehicle data. Julian immediately recognized what it meant. They're trying to bypass the vehicle's encrypted computer. He turned toward the technical team. Record everything. No interruptions. If they choose to commit cyber evidence tampering, he allowed himself a calm smile. We'll happily document that too. Back at the 6th precinct, Vance stared at the Rolls-Royce's digital dashboard. I know there's another compartment. He pressed another hidden button. Nothing. Then another. Still nothing. His frustration boiled over. He slammed his fist against the polished dashboard. Open! The technician stepped back uneasily. Maybe there isn't one. Vance glared at him. There is. Cars like this always have secrets. At that exact moment, his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Vance answered impatiently. What? A calm male voice spoke only one sentence. You should stop searching that car before the search becomes the least of your problems. The line went dead. Vance slowly lowered the phone. For the first time that day, a chill ran down his spine. Someone else knew exactly what he was doing, and they were watching. Officer Dominic Vance stared at the dark screen of his phone for several seconds after the anonymous caller hung up. His heartbeat had quickened. Someone knew he was inside the evidence garage. Someone knew exactly what he was doing. He looked around. The technician was cataloging evidence. Officer Caleb Thorne was updating the inventory log. Neither seemed suspicious. Vance forced a laugh. Probably some idiot trying to scare me. But his voice no longer carried the confidence it had only a short time earlier. Lieutenant Roland Voss entered the garage holding a thin folder. Captain wants everyone upstairs. Vance slipped the phone back into his pocket. What now? Voss's expression remained unreadable. Internal affairs. The conference room was unusually quiet. Captain Victor Harlan stood beside the projector as an internal affairs investigator appeared on a video call. The investigator wasted no time. We've reviewed the civilian videos. Vance folded his arms. They don't show the full encounter. We're aware. We're requesting the original body camera recordings immediately. Harlan answered first. They're being processed. The investigator looked directly into the camera. Nothing is to be edited. No files are to be renamed. No metadata is to be altered. Vance felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The investigator continued. Any attempt to modify digital evidence will constitute a separate criminal offense. The screen went dark. Silence filled the room. Captain Harlan slowly turned toward Vance. Tell me something. Vance swallowed. You didn't touch your body camera files, did you? Vance hesitated just long enough. I only checked the recording. Voss's eyes narrowed. You accessed it. I wanted to make sure everything downloaded. Harlan slammed both hands onto the conference table. I specifically told everyone not to touch anything. Vance's patience finally cracked. So what? I made one traffic stop. You'd think I robbed a bank. Harlan pointed toward the television mounted on the wall. The evening news had already begun. Vance's own face filled the screen. Behind him, the unmistakable image of Nia being pulled from her Rolls-Royce replayed repeatedly. The anchor spoke calmly. New eyewitnesses have come forward claiming the driver remained cooperative throughout the encounter. Another clip appeared. This time, the elderly attorney. I've practiced constitutional law for decades. What I witnessed today was not policing. It was abuse of authority. Vance cursed under his breath. Harlan muted the television. You've become the story. Across the building, Officer Lila Grant quietly approached interview room 3. She unlocked the door. Nia. Nia looked up. Lila lowered her voice. They're talking about charging you with resisting arrest. Nia wasn't surprised, even though the videos show otherwise. Lila nodded sadly. They're rewriting the reports. Nia took a slow breath. And the witnesses? They're trying to identify everyone who recorded the stop. Lila hesitated. I think they're hoping people become too scared to speak. Nia's expression hardened for the first time, not because of herself, but because innocent citizens were now becoming targets. She looked directly at Lila. Whatever happens next, don't let anyone convince you that telling the truth is disloyal. Lila's eyes became glassy. I don't know if I'm brave enough. You don't have to be fearless, you only have to be honest. Lila quietly nodded before leaving. Meanwhile, Officer Caleb Thorne reviewed the evidence inventory one final time. Something bothered him. He opened Vance's incident report, then compared it with his own body camera timestamps. His eyes widened. The times didn't match. Vance claimed Nia resisted before the window was broken. The digital timestamps proved the exact opposite. Caleb checked again. This report is impossible, he whispered to himself. Before he could think further, Captain Harlan walked into the records office. Caleb? He quickly minimized the file. Yes, Captain. Harlan closed the office door behind him. I need you to update the evidence log. What needs updating? The time the credential holder was recovered. Caleb looked confused. But that's already accurate. Harlan's voice became colder. Not anymore. Caleb understood immediately. You want me to change it? I want the paperwork consistent. It wouldn't be. Harlan stepped closer. You've got a promising career. Don't throw it away over paperwork. For several long seconds, Caleb said nothing. Finally, he answered, I need a minute. Harlan stared at him. You've got 5. The door closed. Caleb looked down at the keyboard. One keystroke. That was all it would take. One false timestamp. One lie. His hands hovered above the keys, but he couldn't move. At the same time, inside the Federal Command Center, Special Agent Julian Crow watched encrypted updates arrive one after another. Attempted report alteration. Possible evidence tampering. Witness intimidation. Julian looked toward the federal prosecutor. They're escalating faster than we predicted. The prosecutor nodded. Do we intervene now? Julian remained silent for a moment. Then he shook his head. Not yet. Another agent frowned. Sir, Agent Harlan is still sitting in that interview room. Julian answered calmly, because she asked us not to move until the conspiracy revealed itself. He looked toward the growing list of violations. If we had stepped in earlier, Dominic Vance would have faced one excessive force complaint. He tapped the monitor. Now we're documenting conspiracy, civil rights violations, evidence tampering, obstruction, witness intimidation. He paused. And we're not finished. Back inside the 6th precinct, Captain Harlan made his final decision. He walked into interview room 3 carrying a fresh stack of paperwork. Vance stood beside him with a satisfied smile. Harlan placed the documents in front of Nia. We're officially charging you with resisting arrest, obstructing an investigation, and interfering with law enforcement. Vance folded his arms. You've had plenty of chances to cooperate. Harlan slid the papers closer. Sign these and things might go easier for you. Nia calmly looked at each page before raising her eyes. I won't sign a single false statement. Vance laughed. Then enjoy spending the night in a holding cell. Nia's expression never changed. Instead, she asked one quiet question. Before you file those charges, are you absolutely certain everyone involved wants their names on those documents? Vance smirked. Every one of us. Nia slowly nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. Neither Vance nor Captain Harlan understood why those simple words sent a sudden wave of unease through Lieutenant Roland Voss, who had been silently listening from the hallway. For the first time all day, Voss found himself wondering a terrifying question. What if the woman they were trying so desperately to bury had been documenting them from the very beginning? Lieutenant Roland Voss couldn't shake the feeling that Nia Harlan's final question hadn't been a bluff. Are you absolutely certain everyone involved wants their names on those documents? The words echoed in his mind long after Captain Victor Harlan and Officer Dominic Vance left interview room 3. Voss remained in the hallway, staring through the narrow window in the steel door. Nia sat exactly where she had been for hours. No panic, no anger, no desperate phone calls demanding a lawyer. She simply waited. It wasn't the behavior of someone hoping to escape, it was the behavior of someone waiting for a clock to reach a specific time. Vance, meanwhile, was convinced he had finally broken her. Get her into holding cell 2, he ordered. 2 detention officers unlocked the interview room. Stand up. Nia rose without resistance. As they escorted her through the booking area, conversation stopped. Every officer looked toward her, some with curiosity, others with open contempt. Vance followed behind with a smug smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced loudly, this is what happens when someone thinks they're smarter than the badge. A few officers laughed. Others remained silent. Lila Grant lowered her head. Caleb Thorne looked away. Neither could force themselves to join in. As Nia passed Vance, she quietly asked, Is humiliating people part of your training, officer? Vance leaned close enough that only she could hear. No, it's a bonus. He pushed open the holding cell door. The heavy steel gate slammed shut behind her. Vance smiled. Enjoy the view. Nia calmly sat on the narrow bench. You should enjoy yours while you still can. Vance rolled his eyes and walked away. Minutes later, Captain Harlan gathered his command staff once again. We're filing the charges tonight. Lieutenant Voss hesitated. Shouldn't we wait for internal affairs? Harlan's expression hardened. If we hesitate now, we look guilty. Vance nodded confidently. Exactly. Harlan slid the charging document across the table. I want signatures from everyone involved. Vance immediately signed. Officer Hale signed. Officer Croft signed. The paperwork reached Caleb Thorne. He stared at the blank signature line. Vance noticed. Problem? Caleb swallowed. The report says Nia became aggressive before the window was broken. Vance folded his arms. That's right. It isn't what I saw. The room became painfully quiet. Captain Harlan spoke slowly. What are you saying? I'm saying... Caleb took a deep breath. That's not what happened. Vance slammed his fist onto the table. Careful. Caleb didn't move. My body camera shows something different. Harlan's face turned pale. Nobody asked what your camera shows. They will. Vance stepped closer. You really want to throw away your career for someone you've never met? Caleb answered without looking away. No, I don't want to throw away my integrity. Before anyone could respond, a sharp electronic buzz echoed through the building. Every officer looked toward the front entrance. Another buzz followed, then another. The dispatcher's voice suddenly came over the radio. Captain, her voice trembled. You need to come to the lobby immediately. Captain Harlan frowned. What now? Nobody answered. Vance adjusted his duty belt. I'll handle it. The group walked quickly toward the main entrance. The moment they reached the lobby, every step slowed. Outside the glass doors stood nearly 24 dark SUVs, black, unmarked. Their emergency lights flashed silently. Men and women in navy windbreakers stepped out in perfect coordination. Across their backs, bright gold letters reflected beneath the parking lot lights. FBI. Vance stopped walking. What the... More vehicles arrived behind them. The entire front parking lot was sealed within seconds. Uniformed patrol cars found themselves blocked from every exit. Inside the lobby, dispatchers stared through the glass. One whispered, "Why are there so many?" No one answered. The front doors opened. A tall man in a dark suit entered first. Behind him walked more than 20 federal agents. No one raised a weapon. No one shouted. They moved with calm precision. The man at the front removed a folded document from a leather portfolio. I'm Special Agent Julian Crow. His voice was steady. I'm here under authority of the United States Department of Justice. Every conversation inside the precinct stopped instantly. Captain Harlan stepped forward. There must be some mistake. Julian looked directly at him. There isn't. He handed Harlan the first document, a federal search warrant, then another, a federal evidence preservation order, then a third, and multiple federal arrest warrants that will be executed shortly. Vance laughed nervously. This is about that traffic stop. Julian didn't even look at him. It's about far more than one traffic stop. He nodded once toward his team. Federal agents immediately spread throughout the building. Evidence lockers, computer servers, records office, dispatch center. Every location was quietly secured. Vance stepped toward Julian. You can't just walk into our precinct. Julian calmly held up the final document. I already have. Lieutenant Roland Voss looked at the seal on the warrant. His face lost all color. A federal judge had signed earlier. Everything was legal. Everything had been prepared. Vance's confidence finally cracked. Who filed all this? Julian slowly turned toward holding cell 2. A faint smile crossed his face. The person you've been calling a suspect. Vance frowned. What are you talking about? Julian answered with absolute certainty. Bring Agent Nia Harlan. Every officer in the lobby froze. The word seemed impossible. Agent? Lila's eyes widened. Caleb slowly lowered the paperwork still clutched in his hand. Captain Harlan felt his knees weaken. Vance laughed again, but this time there was no confidence behind it. That's impossible. Julian looked him directly in the eyes. Officer Vance, it becomes very possible the moment she decides to show you the badge you dismissed as fake. For the first time all day, Dominic Vance realized he might have made the single worst mistake of his entire career. The lobby of the 6th Precinct fell into complete silence. Every officer stared at Special Agent Julian Crow. No one spoke. No one moved. Only the faint buzz of fluorescent lights broke the tension. Officer Dominic Vance forced a laugh. Agent. He shook his head. She's been sitting in one of our holding cells all afternoon. Julian never looked away from him. Exactly. He nodded once toward 2 FBI agents. Bring Agent Nia Harlan. The agents walked calmly down the hallway. No one dared stop them. Holding cell 2 echoed with the metallic click of a key turning in the lock. Nia looked up as the heavy steel door slowly opened. 2 FBI agents stood outside. One of them smiled. Good evening, ma'am. We're ready. Nia stood. Her wrists were still marked from the handcuffs Vance had tightened earlier. Without saying a word, one of the agents unlocked the restraints. The other handed her a slim black case. Nia opened it. Inside rested the same leather credential holder Vance had dismissed as fake. She removed the polished badge, then clipped it calmly to her jacket. The gold letters reflected beneath the hallway lights. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Special Agent Nia Harlan. She straightened her jacket. Let's finish this. Every eye in the lobby followed her as she walked beside the federal agents. The mocking smiles that had filled the precinct only minutes earlier had vanished. Officer Lila Grant felt tears forming in her eyes. She finally understood why Nia had never panicked. Caleb Thorne slowly lowered his head. Lieutenant Roland Voss stood perfectly still. Captain Victor Harlan could barely breathe. Dominic Vance stared in disbelief. No, he whispered. That's impossible. Nia stopped only a few feet away. She looked directly at Vance. You said fake badges don't fool experienced officers. Without another word, she handed her credentials to Julian Crow. Julian opened them for everyone to see. Federal identification, official credentials, current security clearance, every detail authentic. Julian closed the wallet. Would anyone here still like to question her identity? Nobody answered. Vance suddenly pointed toward Nia. So what? Being FBI doesn't mean you're above the law. No, Nia replied calmly. It doesn't. She took one step forward. But neither are you. Julian removed another folder from his briefcase. This investigation began many months ago. He laid dozens of photographs across the front desk. Pictures of officers, meeting suspected drug traffickers, cash exchanges, secret warehouse meetings, luxury vacations paid for by known criminal associates, hidden bank accounts. Lieutenant Voss stared at the photographs. I've never seen these. You weren't supposed to, Julian answered. Another FBI agent rolled in 3 sealed evidence containers. Each carried federal evidence labels. Julian continued. During the past many months, Agent Harlan documented repeated violations committed by members of this precinct. He looked around the room. Unlawful vehicle stops, civil rights violations, evidence tampering, false arrests, extortion, protection payments. Every accusation landed like another hammer blow. Captain Harlan slowly stepped backward. Vance shook his head repeatedly. You're lying. Julian nodded toward one of the technicians. The lights dimmed. A projector illuminated the far wall. Video began playing. Not cell phone footage, not body camera footage. A hidden camera angle from inside the Rolls-Royce. Crystal clear. Vance's own voice filled the room. A black woman doesn't belong behind the wheel of a Rolls-Royce like this. The sound of shattered glass echoed through the lobby. Several officers closed their eyes. The recording continued. Women like you don't buy cars like this. You should have stayed where people expected you to be. Fake badge. Every insult, every shove, every lie, every second. Nobody could deny it. Vance's face drained of color. Where? He whispered. Where did that camera come from? Nia answered quietly. The moment you chose to destroy my window, you also activated 3 independent federal recording systems. Vance stumbled backward. No, Julian continued. And when you disconnected one transmitter, he nodded toward another technician. The backup system automatically uploaded everything to FBI servers. Vance looked at Caleb, then at Harlan. Neither man spoke. Captain Harlan finally tried one last defense. This proves excessive force. It doesn't prove corruption. Julian smiled faintly. You're right. He opened another folder. That's why we brought this. Federal agents carried in 4 desktop computers taken from the records office only minutes earlier. A cyber specialist connected an external drive. Within seconds, dozens of altered police reports appeared on the large screen. Timestamps, edited narratives, deleted evidence logs, modified arrest reports, everything carefully preserved. The cyber specialist spoke. Someone attempted to alter these records less than 2 hours ago. The exact user accounts appeared beside each modification. Dominic Vance, Captain Victor Harlan, 2 supervising sergeants. Lieutenant Roland Voss's name never appeared. Voss looked stunned. Julian turned toward him. You never altered the files. Voss slowly nodded. No, Julian continued, and your body camera remained untouched. Voss looked confused. I thought, Julian interrupted gently. We know you were beginning to tell the truth. Voss closed his eyes. Months of doubt suddenly made sense. Vance suddenly lunged toward the nearest computer. Turn that off. Before he could reach it, 2 FBI agents stepped in front of him. Federal agents, don't move. Vance froze. Julian calmly removed one final document. Officer Dominic Vance. He paused. You are under arrest for violating federal civil rights statutes, obstruction of justice, destruction of federal evidence, conspiracy to falsify official records, and deprivation of rights under color of law. Vance's breathing became shallow. You can't prove all of that. Julian looked toward Nia. She calmly reached into her briefcase and removed a small digital recorder. I can. She pressed play. The room filled with Captain Harlan's unmistakable voice. If the car is clean, make sure it doesn't stay that way. Absolute silence. Captain Harlan slowly lowered his head. He knew it was over. Julian nodded once. Execute the warrants. Within seconds, FBI agents moved throughout the lobby. Handcuffs clicked shut. Captain Victor Harlan, Officer Dominic Vance, Officer Hale, Officer Croft, 3 detectives, 2 evidence clerks, a supervising sergeant, one after another. Badges were removed. Weapons were surrendered. Careers ended. As Vance's wrists were cuffed behind his back, he looked helplessly at Nia. I was just doing my job. She met his eyes with the same calm expression she had worn since the shattered window. No, Officer Vance. You stopped doing your job the moment you decided the color of my skin mattered more than the truth. For the first time that day, Dominic Vance had nothing left to say. The clicking of handcuffs echoed through the 6th precinct like a final verdict. Only hours earlier, Officer Dominic Vance had proudly marched Nia Harlan through the same lobby in handcuffs while officers laughed at her. Now history had reversed itself. Vance stood silently between two FBI agents, his own wrists restrained behind his back. The badge he had once worn with arrogance had already been removed from his uniform. Captain Victor Harlan looked toward the floor, avoiding every camera now filling the lobby. Outside, local reporters watched in disbelief as one officer after another was escorted into waiting federal vehicles. The same witnesses who had recorded Nia's arrest now recorded something entirely different. Justice. Lieutenant Roland Voss remained standing near the front desk. Julian Crow approached him. "You understand why you're not in handcuffs?" Voss nodded slowly. "I should have stopped this years ago," Julian answered honestly. "You should have." Voss lowered his head. "I ignored too many warning signs." Julian looked toward the empty captain's office. "Looking away isn't the same as committing the crime." He paused. "But it does allow it to grow." Voss accepted the words without argument. "They'll probably ask for my resignation," Julian replied. "That's a decision for the city." Voss quietly removed his lieutenant's badge and placed it on the counter. "I don't deserve to wear it until the public trusts this department again." Across the room, Officer Lila Grant watched everything unfold. She hesitated before walking toward Nia. "I owe you an apology." Nia smiled gently. "For what?" "I wore the same uniform. You weren't the one who abused it." Lila looked down. "I almost stayed silent." "But you didn't." Lila's voice trembled. "I wasn't brave." "You were." Nia placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing the truth even when fear is standing beside you." Lila felt tears running down her face. "I'll remember that for the rest of my career." A few feet away, Caleb Thorne approached with obvious guilt. "I should have spoken sooner." "You did speak." "Not soon enough." Nia looked at him kindly. "Most people don't wake up one morning and suddenly become courageous. They become courageous one honest decision at a time." Caleb nodded. "I've already agreed to cooperate with federal investigators." Julian Crow joined the conversation. His testimony helped confirm the timeline. Vance overheard every word. His shoulders slumped. For the first time, he realized it wasn't one mistake that had destroyed him. It was years of believing nobody inside the department would ever tell the truth. Later, the federal courthouse overflowed with reporters. The corruption trial became one of the most closely followed cases in the state's history. Jurors watched hours of video recording, civilian cell phone footage, body camera footage, hidden federal surveillance, audio recordings, altered reports, financial records. Every piece of evidence fit together perfectly. The defense argued that Dominic Vance had made a split-second decision under pressure. The prosecutor calmly played the recording again. "A black woman doesn't belong behind the wheel of a Rolls-Royce like this." The courtroom became silent. Those words revealed something no attorney could explain away. Bias, not fear. The jury needed little time to reach a verdict. Dominic Vance was found guilty on multiple federal charges, including violating civil rights under color of law, conspiracy to falsify official records, obstruction of justice, and destruction of federal evidence. Captain Victor Harlan was convicted of conspiracy, witness intimidation, and directing the falsification of police reports. Several other officers accepted plea agreements and agreed to testify in related investigations. The judge's final words echoed throughout the courtroom. "A badge is a symbol of public trust, not personal power. When those entrusted with protecting constitutional rights choose prejudice over justice, they betray every honest officer who wears the same uniform." Over the following time, the 6th precinct changed dramatically. More than 20 officers were dismissed or prosecuted. Every use of force complaint from previous years was reopened for independent review. Body camera policies became stricter. Evidence systems were placed under external oversight. Civil rights training became mandatory for every officer. The city also established a permanent civilian review board with subpoena authority, ensuring future complaints would never again disappear inside filing cabinets. One quiet afternoon, Nia returned to the same intersection where everything had begun. The shattered glass had long been swept away. Traffic flowed normally. People hurried along the sidewalks, unaware that history had quietly changed there. Lila Grant, now promoted to field training officer, happened to drive past. She stopped her patrol car and stepped outside. "I thought I might find you here." Nia smiled. "It's quieter now." Lila looked around. "Funny." "What is?" "The place where everything fell apart," she smiled softly, "became the place where everything finally started getting better." Nia nodded. "Justice rarely begins in court. It usually begins the moment someone refuses to accept a lie." Lila extended her hand. "Thank you." Nia shook it warmly. "No, thank you for choosing the truth when it would have been easier to choose comfort." Lila returned to her patrol car. This time, The badge on her chest represented exactly what it was supposed to represent: service, not authority; protection, not power. As Nia watched the cruiser disappear into the afternoon sunlight, her phone vibrated. A secure message appeared on the screen. Operation Iron Veil closed. Status successful. She smiled quietly before slipping the phone back into her pocket. The investigation was over, but the lesson would remain far longer than any case file. No uniform, title, fortune, or first impression gives anyone the right to decide another person's worth. True justice begins when integrity is stronger than prejudice, and when ordinary people choose truth over silence. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories that remind us why dignity always deserves to be defended.